Some people seem to arrive in this world with a light already shining from within. They are the children who seem to understand things before they are taught, who feel things more deeply, who possess a charisma that is as natural as breathing. They have a gift, but every gift, no matter how brilliant, comes with a shadow, a price. This is the story of a little girl from Texas who was born with a light so bright it was destined to fill movie screens around the world. It's the story of a once-in-a-generation talent, but it's also the story of the shadow that walked beside her from her very first days, a secret battle that would define her entire life, and a quiet struggle that makes her triumphs on screen all the more miraculous and all the more heartbreaking. To understand the story of Skye McCole Bartusiak, you must begin at the very beginning and watch as the light and the shadow dance a story of breathtaking bravery and devastating tragedy. On September 28, 1992, in Houston, Texas, Skye McCole Bartusiak was born to Donald and Helen Bartusiak. Hers was not a Hollywood dynasty. Her father was a respected chemical engineer, her mother a dedicated homemaker who would soon become her daughter's greatest champion. This was a grounded, all-American family. But from the very start, it was clear that Skye was extraordinary. She was an old soul in a tiny body, possessing an intelligence and an emotional depth that was startling. While most toddlers are learning to walk and talk, Skye seemed to be observing the world with a profound understanding. But it was in these very early days, as her brilliant personality was just beginning to blossom, that the shadow first appeared. When she was just a baby, she suffered a frightening, unexplained neurological event. It was the first of what would become a lifelong series of epileptic seizures. For her parents, it was a moment of sheer terror. Doctors were consulted, tests were run, a diagnosis was made, and with it came a new, terrifying reality. Their daughter, this perfect, brilliant child, was carrying a secret burden. She had a chronic illness that could strike at any moment without warning. This secret would become the silent, defining fact of her entire existence, a private battle that would be waged behind the scenes of a very public life. Despite this hidden struggle, Skye's inner light could not be contained. She was drawn to performance, to storytelling, to the world of imagination. She wasn't pushed by ambitious parents. She was pulled by an innate talent. She began acting professionally at an age when most children are just starting kindergarten. Her first role came in 1999 in the Stephen King television miniseries Storm of the Century. The same year, she appeared in the critically acclaimed Oscar-winning film The Cider House Rules. Casting directors saw it immediately. This wasn't just a cute kid who could deliver a line. This was a true, natural-born actress. She had an ability to access deep, authentic emotions that was simply uncanny, and Hollywood was about to give her the role of a lifetime, a role that would ironically mirror the silent internal battle she was already fighting every day. In the late 1990s, director Roland Emmerich was casting for his epic film about the American Revolution, The Patriot. The film was a massive undertaking, a blockbuster starring one of the biggest stars in the world, Mel Gibson. A crucial part of the film was the role of Susan Martin, the youngest daughter of Gibson's character. The character of Susan was uniquely challenging. Traumatized into silence by witnessing a horrific event, she does not speak for a huge portion of the film. The role required a child actor who could convey a universe of pain, fear, and love without a single word of dialogue. It required a performer who could command the screen with only her presence, with the depth in her eyes. It was a role that would have challenged a seasoned adult actor. They needed someone special. When 7-year-old Skye McCole Bartusiak walked into the audition, the search was over. They saw in her soulful eyes and expressive face the perfect embodiment of Susan's silent suffering and inner strength. Landing the role was a triumph, but it also presented a new set of challenges for her and her family. How could a 7-year-old girl, who was privately managing a serious seizure disorder, handle the immense physical and emotional pressures of a massive blockbuster film set? The production was enormous, with thousands of extras, loud battle sequences involving explosions and gunfire, and long, grueling shooting days. For any child, it would have been overwhelming. For a child with epilepsy, a condition that can be triggered by stress and exhaustion, it was a monumental risk. But Skye, with her mother Helen always by her side, faced it with a professionalism that astounded everyone. Her on-set life became a masterclass in control. While her own body could feel unpredictable and frightening, the craft of acting offered a space where she was in complete command. She channeled her own reserves of strength and vulnerability into the character of Susan. The cast and crew were in awe of her. Mel Gibson took on a protective, fatherly role, ensuring she felt safe and supported. She formed a close bond with Heath Ledger, the charismatic young actor playing her older brother, Gabriel. The on-set family became a real one, a bubble of support that allowed Skye to deliver one of the most memorable child performances of the era. And then there was the scene, the emotional climax of her character's journey. Benjamin Martin is riding away to war, and Susan, who has been locked in her silent prison of trauma, finally finds her voice. Watching that scene now with the knowledge of Skye's hidden battle, it takes on an entirely new and poignant dimension. It's not just a character overcoming trauma. It's a reflection of Skye's own life. It's a metaphor for her own struggle to have a voice, to break through a silence imposed on her by a condition she could not control. When she runs across that field and whispers, "Papa," it is a moment of pure cinematic magic. The film was a global phenomenon, and Skye McCole Bartusiak, at just 7 years old, had captured the hearts of millions. Her light was shining for the whole world to see, but the shadow, her private battle, remained a constant companion on her journey. The phenomenal success of The Patriot catapulted Skye to the top of the A-list for child actors. The years immediately following the film were a whirlwind of high-profile projects. She was now one of the most sought-after young talents in the industry, and she proved her versatility time and time again. In 2001, she shared the screen with another Hollywood legend, Michael Douglas, in the tense psychological thriller, Don't Say a Word. She played the pivotal role of the daughter of a psychiatrist who holds the secret to a hidden fortune in her traumatized mind. Once again, Skye was tasked with conveying a complex inner world of fear and distress, and she did so with a maturity that was astonishing. She wasn't just playing scared, she was embodying a character's deep psychological fracture. That same year, she appeared in the Drew Barrymore-led film Riding in Cars with Boys, directed by Penny Marshall. She was proving she could hold her own in any genre, from historical epics to tense thrillers to character-driven dramas. The momentum was powerful and undeniable. Then in 2002, she entered the world of groundbreaking television, taking on a significant recurring role in the first season of the iconic series 24. Playing Megan Matheson, a young girl caught in the web of a terrorist plot, she again delivered a performance filled with nuance and believable terror. She was a key part of one of the most talked about shows on television, demonstrating her ability to handle the fast-paced, high-stakes world of serial drama. Throughout this period of intense work and rising fame, she navigated the industry with her mother Helen as her constant guide. They were a team facing the pressures of Hollywood together, and all the while they were managing Skye's epilepsy, Every audition, every long day on set, every press event was underscored by the private worry about her health. The need for regular sleep, a low-stress environment, and consistent medication was often at odds with the chaotic, demanding schedule of a working actress. But Skye persevered. She refused to be seen as a victim or to use her illness as an excuse. She was a professional who was determined to succeed on her own terms. For a time, it seemed like she had found a way to make the light and the shadow coexist. But Hollywood is a notoriously fickle town, and the life of a child actor is one of constant, unforgiving transition. As Skye moved from childhood into her teenage years, the inevitable challenge arose. The roles that had once been so plentiful, the parts for soulful, vulnerable young daughters, began to dry up. She was no longer the cherubic girl from the Patriot. She was a young woman, and the industry which categorizes actors with brutal efficiency struggled to see her in a new light. This is the great filter for child stars, the point where so many promising careers stall. The journey from child actor to respected adult performer is one of the most difficult paths in the entertainment business. Skye continued to work, but the projects changed. She appeared in the 2005 horror film Boogeyman. A departure from her earlier work, she took guest spots on hit television shows like House, Lost, and CSI Crime Scene Investigation. These were solid credits, proof that she was still in the game, but they were a far cry from the starring roles she had commanded just a few years earlier. She also appeared in a number of independent films, projects like Kill Your Darlings and Sick Boy. These smaller films allowed her to stretch her creative muscles, but they did not have the visibility of her earlier blockbuster work. The spotlight that had once shone so brightly on her was beginning to dim. This professional uncertainty coincided with the personal challenges of adolescence. It's a difficult time for any young person, a period of self-discovery and insecurity. For Skye, these universal struggles were amplified by the pressures of her past fame and her ongoing battle with her health. While she was trying to figure out who she was as a young woman, the world still saw her as the little girl from the movies. It's an immense psychological weight to carry. But Skye was not one to be defeated. Instead of desperately chasing a fame that was becoming more elusive, she began to channel her immense creativity in new directions. She found a new passion for working behind the camera. She started writing, producing, and directing her own short films. She wanted to be the storyteller, the one in control of the narrative. This was a powerful move, an attempt to build an identity separate from her on-screen persona. She and her close friends also formed a band where she wrote and performed music. It was another outlet for her emotions, another space where she could be her authentic self, away from the judgment of casting directors. She made the conscious decision to remain in Texas, close to the grounding influence of her family. She moved into a garage apartment behind her parents' Houston home, a space she renovated and made her own. This was not the life of a stereotypical former child star burning out in the Los Angeles party scene. This was the life of a young artist, quietly and determinedly trying to build a future for herself, to find a new way for her light to shine. But even as she was bravely forging this new path, the shadow of her illness was lengthening. The seizures, which had been relatively well managed by medication for several years, began to return with a new and terrifying vengeance. In the last few years of her life, Skye's battle with epilepsy intensified dramatically. Her mother, Helen, described this period with heartbreaking clarity. The seizures were becoming more frequent and more violent. Helen would find her daughter in the grip of a convulsion, a horrifying experience that left both of them shaken. The constant threat of these attacks created an ever-present layer of fear in Skye's life. Imagine being 19, 20, 21 years old and not being able to trust your own body. Imagine the terror of feeling the aura, the strange sensory warning that a seizure is about to hit, and knowing that in a few moments you will lose all control. This escalating health crisis led to a corresponding escalation in medical treatment. She was on a cocktail of prescribed medications to try and control the seizures. She was also prescribed painkillers to deal with the intense muscle pain and headaches that followed each episode. She was caught in a cycle of illness and medication, a young woman desperately trying to manage a debilitating condition. Her life was a far cry from the glamour of the red carpet. It was a life of doctor's appointments, prescriptions, and the constant gnawing fear of the next attack. It is within this context of chronic illness, intense pain, and profound fear that we must view the final, tragic chapter of her life. On the night of July 18th, 2014, Skye was at home in her garage apartment. She was excited about the future. She had plans to produce a film, she was making music, and she was in a happy relationship with her boyfriend. By all accounts from her family, she was not depressed or suicidal. She was a fighter who was looking forward to life. The next morning, on July 19th, her boyfriend found her unresponsive in her bed. Her mother, a trained paramedic, rushed to her side and immediately began CPR, but it was too late. Skye McCole Bartusiak was pronounced dead. She was just 21 years old. Her death was a devastating shock to her family and to the fans who remembered her so fondly. The official cause of death, released by the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences, was ruled an accident. It was an overdose caused by the combined toxic effects of several drugs. The report listed hydrocodone, an opioid painkiller, and defluorothane with carisoprodol, a muscle relaxer. This clinical language, however, does not capture the tragic human story behind it. This was not a simple story of reckless drug abuse. It was the endpoint of a long and desperate battle. Her mother, Helen, in her profound grief, offered a heartbreaking theory. She believed Skye's death was a tragic accident born of desperation. The defluorothane, the chemical found in aerosol dusters, was the most troubling element. Helen believed that Skye, who had been suffering from seizures again, may have inhaled the substance in a panicked attempt to stop an attack she felt coming on. We will never know if this is true. We will never know what was in Skye's mind in her final private moments. Was she experimenting? Was she in pain? Was she trying to self-medicate her terror? What seems clear is that this was not a story of a party girl. This was the story of a patient, a young woman grappling with a terrifying chronic illness, using a combination of prescribed medications and perhaps making a tragically poor decision with a dangerous household chemical. Her death was the result of a perfect storm of pain, fear, and a desperate desire for relief. The shadow she had lived with since infancy had finally, tragically, overcome the light. The legacy Skye McCole Bartusiak leaves behind is both simple and profoundly complex. Her most visible legacy is, of course, her work. Her performance in The Patriot remains her enduring monument. It is a perfect, powerful portrayal of vulnerability and resilience that continues to move audiences to this day. For millions, she is and always will be that brave little girl in the field, a cherished part of cinematic history. Her death prompted a massive outpouring of grief from a dedicated community of fans who had never forgotten her. But her deeper significance lies in the story that was largely hidden from the public eye. Her life is a powerful, if quiet, cautionary tale. It's a story about the immense, unspoken pressures faced by young people in the spotlight, especially those who are simultaneously waging a private war against a chronic illness. It challenges the simplistic narratives we so often apply to former child stars. Skye did not flame out in a blaze of public scandals. She fought her battles quietly at home, surrounded by her family. Her story reminds us that the brightest smiles can hide the deepest pain, and that we can never truly know the full weight of the burdens that others carry. Ultimately, Skye's story is one of incredible bravery. It is the story of a little girl who faced down a debilitating illness to share her extraordinary gift with the world. It's the story of a young woman who, when the spotlight faded, refused to disappear and instead began forging a new creative path for herself. The final tragedy of her life should not be allowed to overshadow the immense courage with which she lived it. When we look back at that iconic scene now, it is impossible not to feel a profound sense of sadness. We see a little girl, trapped in a prison of silence, who finds the strength to break free and speak. It is the perfect metaphor for Skye's own life, a life spent trying to find her voice, to live fully, and to break free from the constraints of an illness that was always there, just out of sight. Her mother called her a brave, brave soul. And in the end, that is the most fitting way to remember her. Not as a victim, not as a tragedy, but as a brave soul who shared her light with us for a little while. It was a light that burned out far too soon, but its warmth and its brilliance will not be forgotten. And that wraps up today's video. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like, leave a comment with your feedback, and subscribe to stay updated on upcoming videos. Appreciate you watching.